Hey, campfire crew, let's get it on.
Hell is behind that door. You're going to meet death now. The living dead.
Strange Being, submitted by Blokey. This happened in the summer of 2000, just outside Paducah, Kentucky, on a stretch of road that felt too empty even during the day. At night, it was something else entirely. My girlfriend Melissa and I had been driving back from a late dinner with the windows down and the radio low. One of those humid Kentucky nights where the air seems to stick to your skin no matter what, and it didn't help that my AC wasn't working. There weren't any streetlights on this road, just the narrow beam of my headlights cutting through the trees. But I remember the moment everything changed because the radio went to static. It didn't fade out or crackle or anything. It just went staticky and then was gone. At the same time, my car's engine seemed to be hesitating, so I eased off the gas, instinctively glancing at the dashboard. Everything was still lit up, there were no warning lights on, but something just felt off. Melissa grabbed my arm and said, "Do you see that?" And I looked up. At first I thought it was just lightning, some kind of flash in the sky. But this light didn't disappear. It hung there, a bright white light, steady and focused. It wasn't like anything I'd ever seen in the sky. It wasn't moving like a plane or blinking like a helicopter, and it wasn't multicolored lights. It was just one bright white light, and it hovered there. Then it seemed to start coming down to the ground, slowly. The light grew larger and brighter until it washed out the trees around us, and shadows seemed to be stretching in all kinds of weird directions. I could feel it through the windshield. It was like heat without warmth. I don't know if I'm making sense there. I pulled the car over without even thinking, but Melissa said, "Don't stop." I already had. My engine was still idling rough, like it was choking. The radio was still dead, and all we could hear was this low hum, something coming from outside. We saw the light settle behind the tree line, maybe 100 yards off the road. And it didn't land so much as just kind of hovered above the ground, bathing everything in this harsh white glow. We could see it through the trees. For a few minutes, nothing happened as we watched. And then I saw movement. Something stepped out from the edge of the light, and at first I thought it was a guy. It had the shape of a human being, arms, legs, and head, but the way it moved didn't sit right with me. It's like its limbs weren't quite syncing right, like whatever it was learning how to walk for the first time as it walked. I watched as it came closer to the road and get closer to our car. I do remember thinking, man, I should lock the doors and roll the windows up. But I didn't move at all. I just kept staring at this thing. Its skin, if that's what it was, looked way too tight, like stretched over its frame like it didn't fit properly. And its face, I still kind of have trouble describing it. I wish I had had a cell phone to take a picture of it. Its face just wasn't right either. Its eyes seemed too still and too focused, and its mouth was hung open slightly, like it didn't understand what it was for. Then it stopped near the front of the car and turned its head right at us. Melissa let out this small squeak, but managed to say, "Drive!" I didn't. I couldn't. I kept staring at this thing. It moved again, quicker now, stepping off the shoulder and onto the road. It never blinked, and it didn't hesitate. It walked straight towards the passenger side of my car. Melissa was now freaking the F out, screaming, "Drive! Drive!" Her voice was breaking into a scream as this thing reached towards her window. It leaned down, its face inches from where the glass should have been. Its head was tilted slightly as if studying both of us, and that's when I finally snapped out of it. I slammed on the gas and got us out of there. We shot forward with gravel spitting all over the place behind us. And in the rearview mirror, the light seemed to flare brighter for a second, and then everything went dark again. The radio came back on mid-song, and I noticed my engine smoothed out like nothing had ever happened. Neither of us spoke for the rest of the drive. Even now, years later, I still think about the way that thing was looking at us. It seemed more curious than anything else. But I'm just still trying to understand how it seemed to be trying to be something it wasn't. I saw Melissa last year at our high school reunion, 25 years. She's married with kids and has a great life, as do I. But when we both saw each other, we ran off to the side saying, "Do you remember?" And we both knew exactly what the other was talking about. The Bus Driver, submitted by Matthew H. Hey, Uncle Josh, this story goes back over 20 years. In middle school, the bus that I rode was probably the most unruly, violent bus in our school system. Fights were a daily occurrence. We went through bus drivers like water. It was a running joke that no one would drive our bus before the end of the year. And I think by mid-year we had gone through 5 or 6 of them. Side note, I minded my own business and didn't get involved unless provoked. Also, my dad was a zero-tolerance man. As he said, don't start it, but finish it and don't brag about it. Well, our bus finally got a zero-tolerance bus driver, and troublemakers either got kicked out of school or moved. I'm sorry for the backstory. Now to the story at hand. We had Ms. Jackson as our bus driver during this event. We were headed to school and were stopped by a train at the train tracks with crossarms down and the train about 6 feet away from the stop. This psycho of a bus driver put the bus in reverse and proceeded to go down to the next road, which was maybe about 3 bus lengths long. There, it didn't have crossarms down, and we went across while the train was blowing its horn and applying its brakes. Yeah, kids screaming and crying. It scared the shit out of everyone on the bus. She finally pulled into the school parking lot, and the kids were calling their parents from the payphones. Yeah, I'm that old. Other kids were in the office complaining about what she did. The office was so packed it was like sardines in a can. The school didn't have any choice. From the backlash with the parents and the kids, they fired her. They sent out an official letter letting parents and students know that she was no longer employed with our school district. The kicker? The following year she was picked up by a neighboring school district to drive for them, even though they knew why she was released from our school. My Very Haunted House in Buffalo, submitted by Lexi O. I recently found your podcast on Spotify, and I wanted to share with you my own personal scary story. And I just wanted to let you know that even though it may sound a little crazy, it's 100% true. When I was around 5, I lived in Buffalo, New York. My family and I lived in a 2-family house, meaning there were 2 units, one being the upper half of the house, which my family had, and the lower half, which another family had. We were friends with them. That's not too important to the story, but I just wanted to clarify. I remember every single detail about the house, even though I was so young. So let me explain the layout a little bit. You would walk up the stairs to get to our house, and it would open up into the kitchen, and then there was the bathroom. Then my parents' room was the first room that you would find, and then a little bit down the hall you'd find my room. After my room, it would open up to a living room. The house was built in 1910, so it was a pretty old house just for some more context. We lived there from 1998 to 2003, I believe. The house had many entities in it. Here's some of the craziness that I remember happening. I remember that I hated sleeping in my room. I know a lot of kids hate sleeping in their room, but I had a reason. It was so bad that I had to have Christmas lights strung up on my walls, and the radio had to be playing a CD every single night. That's because every night I would get woken up by something moving under my bed. It felt like something huge, almost like a person shaking and banging around, and I could feel it thumping under me as I slept, and it would wake me up. It scared the shit out of me. I couldn't really rationalize it because of the type of bed that I had. It had drawers and was sealed all around, so there was no way anything could get in or out from under it. In the mornings, I would have my mom look, and nothing would ever be under there that could explain the sound or the feeling of something pushing up against it. We did have 2 small dogs and a bigger one, but they couldn't get under there, and the bigger dog was caged at night, so sometimes I would think that one of them somehow got under there, but that thing felt big and felt strong because of how hard it would thump around and move my bed. So I knew there was absolutely no way it was the dogs. My mom was kind of skeptical, and so was my stepdad, and they thought I was just having bad dreams. That is, until my grandma came to visit and slept in my room. The next morning, she was shaken up and said that she had felt something under the bed, and it scared her. She had my Christmas lights turned off so the room wasn't as lit up as it usually was, but when she sat up to see what the heck was going on, she said something black flew out from under the bed, and that it had these glowing red eyes. She obviously knew there was nothing that could get in or out from under the bed, so she was especially scared by what happened. That's kind of when my mom started to take me seriously. Sometime after that incident, something happened to her. I was getting ready for bed one night and sitting there waiting for my mom to come back from taking a phone call, and she saw what she thought was me running down the hallway. She thought it was me because the little girl she saw had long blonde hair, which I also had as a kid. She was wearing a long white nightgown. My mom came in my room and was like, "I thought I told you to stay in your bed. Why were you running around?" And I told her that I hadn't gotten up and that I'd been sitting there the whole time. That's when she noticed my pajamas were different. I was wearing pants and not a white nightgown. I told her that it was Isabel, the little girl that lived in my closet with her mom. When I got a little older, my mom would tell me that I would sit and play with this invisible kid and talk to her. My mom thought it was just me being a kid and having an invisible friend. And I personally don't have too many existing memories of that little girl. But my mom remembers, and she took me seriously after she saw Isabel for herself. Another instance to add was when my mom was home by herself taking a nap. She woke up to what she said sounded like heavy breathing over her and a man's voice yelling her name in a very angry voice. She said it scared the crap out of her and she had to leave the house. She didn't tell me that until after we had moved away from Buffalo. Back to that thing that was under my bed. Some people might say it could have been my neighbors, but I remember my mom asking them if they were doing any kind of cleaning or something that would have bumped the ceiling. They had no idea what she was talking about. We could always hear them doing stuff and talking like normal downstairs neighbors, but that didn't justify feeling actual thumps that would shake my bed to the point where it woke me up. I know there was just something evil in that house, along with all the other ghosts. I want to also add that we thought there was an older lady that liked to hang out in the living room because our rocking chair would start rocking by itself, and when I'd watch TV, the channels would change by themselves. You could say it was an old TV, but it would only happen when I was watching TV, not when anybody else was. So I think she was just playing with me, and I never got any negative feelings when the channels changed, or I'd see the rocking chair going by itself. One of my family members also told me when I got older that they saw an older woman sitting in the rocking chair when they were in the hallway looking into the living room. Obviously, they had no idea who it was because there was no old lady that lived with us. But eventually, we did end up moving to a different house in Buffalo that didn't have anything creepy in it, and my bed never shook like that again once we moved. I don't really remember my stepdad's take on what happened or if he had his own experiences. I wish I could ask him, but my mom divorced him a long time ago, and I haven't heard or seen anything from him since. Early Morning Light by Aromatic Industry. This happened way back in 1982. My cousin and I decided to head north of the Canadian Pacific Railroad during the first week of deer season in Maine. The railroad cuts the state of Maine through the center, and the season started a week earlier above the railroad track back then. We were traveling a road that ran between the towns of Bingham and Abbott. That's roughly 25 miles of nothing but forest. It is pretty much the same way today. We were maybe halfway between the two, and it was still dark when we noticed a light up ahead of us in the center of the road. Just a small beam of light going straight up. Now, there was no one around for many miles. There's not even power lines out there. As we approached it, we could see that it was a flashlight. My cousin was driving, and he slowed down and told me that he was going to stop and get out and grab it. It just gave me the creeps. I mean, something wasn't right about the whole situation. I said, if you want it that bad, don't stop. I'll open the door and grab it without you actually stopping. He agreed, and that's what I did. After I grabbed the light and he started down the road, numerous lights appeared on both sides of the road from where we had just slowed down. Looking in the rearview mirror, we saw people standing along both sides of the road. My cousin stopped for a minute, and they just faded back into the woods. I always thought that we had narrowly escaped a setup. What kind? Well, I don't know. But I honestly think I wouldn't be telling the story if we had stopped. Hey gang, thanks for listening to this episode. If you have a true scary story of any nature that you'd like me to narrate, email it to unclejosh.truescarystories@gmail.com. I read them all. If you're catching this on YouTube and you like what you heard and saw, why not give the video a thumbs up, share it with a friend, leave a comment. I'd love to know what you thought of the stories. It's all free and it all helps out with the algorithms, so I appreciate it. Follow me on social media, and if you'd like to take your support a step further, find a link to my Patreon page in the description, and consider getting some Uncle Josh and Campfire Crew merchandise. A link to my TeePublic storefront is also in the description. Everyone, be excellent to each other, and until next time, be wary of things that go bump in the night. It could be anything: a ghost, a monster, or the guy next door.